think that should be working. Yeah. So Caroline, can I just ask you to mute your microphone, please?
Sure.
Thank you. Otherwise, you become very famous very quickly because suddenly you're in the middle of everything. Okay. Oh, those are a little bit annoying. Maybe I'll switch them off for a minute. Okay. So as of yesterday, we were allowed to reopen the studio. I think that because we are in a position still where the windows aren't providing sufficient ventilation, I have decided that we won't open until the windows are open and perhaps the first kind of week to 10 days of studios being accessible has passed, so that perhaps that initial surge of excitement has leveled off and we can see how things are looking. Regarding the studio, everything that we teach initially will all be from there. Revolution de Cuba won't be having dancing or lessons. The Loughborough venue won't be having dancing or lessons. And I feel that if we keep everything at the Nottingham studio, then I can manage the hygiene and the cleaning and the policies much better without having to wonder what someone else has done before or after us. And certainly initially, I'm not going to hire the space out until we've got a really good system in place and feel confident about it. And then would only hire it out to people who I feel would adhere to that policy as stringently as we do. So the studio has been measured and we have 24 units. So a unit is one person, but in the first instance of opening, I'm going to take a checkerboard approach so that people aren't working in boxes which are adjacent to somebody else. And then because I'll be seeing more groups, I'm going to be further away from everybody than you are to each other. So kind of just in the practicalities of things, when you arrive at class, there's 3 areas that have been designated for waiting areas. So people will be asked to arrive punctually. Everything will have to have been booked in advance, and you should be arriving with the same fixed group. So if you want to join a fixed group, I sent an email out on Saturday with a poll. So if you haven't already got a group in mind, then you can click on the group that you would like to be in, and then I'll contact you guys as a group and you'll be allocated a time, and that will be your day and time for the first 4 weeks. Because we can't have drop-in and we can't have partner changing, the courses as they were aren't going to restart. Anyone with an outstanding course, so someone who's paid for a course rather than credits, can contact me and I will credit them credits which they can use to book classes. So the thinking is that by keeping you in fixed groups, you reduce the risk to each other, but also if anyone does get a positive test, rather than having to cancel the whole studio, we will know exactly who was with who when, and we can do an immediate track and trace. So as a studio, we have a requirement to do our RIDDOR forms and track and trace anything that happens. As a student, you have a requirement to inform us, obviously, and then we have to inform the building. So there's quite a chain of action, but it's all in place and all the plans are in place. We've got a behavioural policy for people arriving, so there'll be expectations such as, and you'll arrive clean, in clean clothing, and with a mindset that will be 2 meters social distancing. So although some places now are saying 1 meter plus, because this is an activity, it increases the aerosol potentially and the droplets. So we're going to go for 2 meters and where possible, make that into 4 meters. So the only people you'll be able to touch will be people from your own household or people that are genuinely in a bubble. The dance guidance for touching is only for professionals who are living and studying or living and performing together. So for social dance at our level, so we come under the guidance of the grassroots services, there will be no physical contact between students unless you are already physically in contact with each other before you arrive. Your fixed group will come, they will arrive staggered. So if your group's more than 6, you'll be asked to arrive in 2 different bubbles. Each area has got 6 allocated spots for changing your shoes. Everybody will be expected to change into dance shoes before they come into the studio and put their outdoor shoes and any belongings in one bag. But we're asking that you arrive with as little as possible, because the less things you bring in, the less chance there is of any virus being carried in. And the quicker we can clean between groups, and the quicker we can clean between groups, then the longer you get. The advice is that groups lessons should not be extended in time, but should actually be reduced in time to reduce exposure. So we've got a plan for that. And the more efficiently and time effectively people can get in and get changed if they absolutely need to, and get their hands washed and their dance shoes on and into the studio, the better, really, because that will allow us to clean the space before the next group. There'll be already there's a one-way system being painted on the walls. So from the moment you arrive, you'll be able to see clearly where the 2-meter spacings are, which direction to travel in through the studio. Certain rooms have got a capacity displayed on the room. So for example, the changing room is 5 people maximum. The toilet area is 1 person. There's a give way between the toilets and the changing area. The sink, we're having 2 extra hot taps installed so that people can wash their hands in 2 locations, but it will be 1 in, 1 out, so it'll be 2 more giveaway points. And then once you enter the studio, there's 3 channels. You'll be allocated a numbered box when you come in. That will be your box for the duration of the lesson. At the moment, we're advised against traveling through someone else's pathway, so we won't be moving around the studio. Regardless of the style, you will be working in your box so that you're not traveling through somebody else's air. Well, there's lots and lots to cover. So primarily, it's my responsibility to make sure everything's in place and that anyone coming to use the space understands it. So I have created a policy for users, which will be you guys, and a policy for people who are hiring the space. But as I've said, we're not going to do that in the first instance. We're just going to get everything safe as possible and working. And then the idea is that we'll start off with perhaps really quite small groups in the lessons. And then as you all become more and more familiar with the system, and hopefully as the cases of COVID go down, we'll start moving nearer to the capacity we're allowed. I'm not suggesting at any point we would go over capacity, but if our capacity is 24, including me, I don't imagine that I'm going to do that for probably not until Christmas even, unless there's a sudden, change for the better in the situation. The idea is you'll have your fixed group that you either build yourself or you vote to join. You'll have an allocated time, and that will be your time and day and lesson for 4 weeks. That lesson will be broadcasted, so people can choose to attend any of the lessons except for private classes online. And if you've booked for 4 weeks, you will still get the lesson, whether you're physically able to attend or not. There's going to be a system in place where every lesson is recorded. So if once you've paid, after the class, you will receive a video of the lesson. So even if you aren't feeling well or you've been asked to isolate, you will still have continuity in your learning, and the learning will be a little bit different. And we've introduced some new things while we've been doing online classes. So quite excited to roll those out as we go forward. So is there any questions on anything so far?
From my point of view, Amanda, I think your approach is very thorough and commendable, and seems very well thought through. Personally, we used to come to the Loughborough session, so yeah. Unfortunately Nottingham's a bit far, so we won't be able to rejoin you until hopefully you manage to get another venue sorted out a bit nearer. But from a safety point of view, what you're putting in place seems a very good set of risk mitigations.
Thank you. We have said that we're going to open on Saturday afternoon for Loughborough students, so that if they wanted to carry on, they wouldn't be trying to rush after work or anything. And there is 2 hours free parking at the studio. It's just at the moment the pubs are using any available space to try and provide enough drinking tables and adhering to the distancing policy.
Yeah.
Which is understandable. So everybody's going to be contacted who's got outstanding courses, because obviously we just assumed we would be pausing things for a period of time and then we'd be able to reopen. I don't think they really foresaw this period of time of being closed. The other option is that if you wanted to carry on digitally, but when we've got an actual class of people, I think it will feel quite different to when it's just been sort of me in my dining room prancing around with the dogs. So hopefully we can offer something somewhere in between in the meantime. So the other idea is that some of these groups are going to be daytime groups, as I've said, some of them at the weekend. And one of the things we're looking at doing is having like a high shielding group, so that people who want to come into the studio but don't want to be mixing with kind of unknown people can arrange groups themselves, or just highlight themselves as someone who's shielding. And what we will do in that circumstance is each person will have, or each couple, if they're a couple, will have a 6 metre by 4 metre grid, and you'll have a 15-minute staggered arrival, so that you're not sharing any of the spaces like the corridor or the changing room. And that's going to be a kind of hybrid lesson that isn't really a private lesson and isn't really a group lesson either, but you work with your partner with my support, and then I move between the 4 couples from a central area, so that you get time to work and practice, and then be given any guidance that you need. And then whoever arrives first will be the first to leave, and you'll leave in the same way that you arrived. I've kind of gone a bit off track, of course I have. So I'll just quickly run back through. So when you've arranged your fixed group, or you've been allocated a fixed group and you've got a date and time, and you've arrived and you've got clean shoes and clean clothes, you've come through the one-way system into the changing rooms, washed your hands and gone into the studio. Once you're in the studio and you're in your allocated numerical box, that's where you stay for the duration of the class. If at any point in the class you need to go back against the one-way system to use the toilet, we're going to use a turning policy. So you ask the people in your channel to turn away while you walk back along the channel to use the facilities, just so that you're not walking through anyone's airstream. And the other thing we've put in place is the exit is no longer going to be where it was. So historically you went in and out the front door. Now you would come in the front door from Ashley Street, come through the studio as you have done previously, and you will exit the studio from the double doors at the far end of the studio, back out onto the street without re-entering the changing area. And that is mainly so that we can try and make the business sustainable, so that we can get the space cleaned and the next group in without you having to cross paths with them, which is the last thing I know you want to do. So there's been risk assessments done, and there's been a COVID assessments done. So we've gone through and highlighted all the touch points. We've removed things so that they're not touched. We've attended several lengthy webinars on how to keep the space clean and what are the priority spaces to be cleaned. So we are not having any floor work. We're not having any corner work. In the first instance, we're not going to be doing any bar work either. So everything will be standing. So whether it's a warm up or a cool down or the lesson, there will be no floor work. Floors and outdoor shoes are being found to be really, really high risk areas. So we're just not going to do that in the probably not this side of Christmas. So we've kind of broken everything down into a traffic light 3-stage thing. The government's looking at dance in 5 stages, and we're currently in stage 3, entering stage 4. 2 of those stages don't apply to us because we're not professional dancers working in a theatre. So I've just broken it down into 3, and we're just going to have red, amber and green. And red will be that the studio is closed to customers, no one comes in. Amber will be the stage we're going to approach on the 17th of August. And then green will be, you know, if and when we get to a point where any kind of contact is allowed. Because currently there'll be no contact unless you've got somebody from your household or somebody that you have a genuine fixed bubble. And I say genuine because you're only meant to have one. And I've already had to sort of say, no, you can't have a bubble for one class with one person and another bubble for another class with another person. And because of this solo work, I've introduced lessons that we haven't done previously, like choreography lessons and fitness classes, so that people can be in the studio and get more from it. We've done some choreography stuff online. It's worked well online. I think it will work even better in person. There's quite a few studio things to consider. So I'm just going to quickly run down my list of things that you can expect as studio users. So we talked about bubbles and we talked about fixed groups. We're asked that you consider how you travel to the lesson. Try to not attend, you know, in clothing that's been in a busy environment and then perhaps been on a bus or a tram. Just going to mute somebody. Just bear with me a minute. Somebody's making noises. I think it might be him. Let me just mute him. There he is. Okay. Hiya. So actually, I can just make sure. So yeah, so just consider how you're traveling to class, and assume on arrival that you need to be making yourself, your clothing and your hands clean, and that when you're leaving, assume that your clothing is contaminated. So, as you know, handle it as such. Please consider your behaviour elsewhere. So if you're going to lots of lessons, for example, and they're not adhering to policy, then we'd ask respectfully that you perhaps don't come to us, that for this period of time, you choose where you're going to attend and attend with people who you feel confident of their behaviour. If you're in any doubt of your health, then please, you know, don't attend physically, just attend virtually. There's going to be 3 hand sanitisation stations and 2 hot water sinks. So use them as you pass the sanitisation points, and then obviously if you want to bring your own sanitizer, then you can use that. we're going to have to ask that people just try not to touch things. So things have been removed and things have been moved. But if you try to not touch stuff, especially my mirrors, that would be awesome. And just generally unnecessary contact. And obviously, while you're in lessons, avoid touching your nose, mouth, and eyes. And that we all these things are in place. So the grid system, the one-way system, the ventilation, everything we're doing is to try and make sure that you feel safe and protected. So we have written into the policy that if somebody is behaving in a way that makes other people not feel safe and protected, they will be asked to leave. I think that's going to be really tricky, but I feel like we all have the right to feel safe while we're dancing. It shouldn't be an anxious activity. So we have got that written into the new COVID policy. And as I said earlier, I know we've had a few people join us since we started. There's a policy for me as the studio provider, and also one for the teachers. So at the moment, I'm wearing both of those hats, but I want both systems to be in place before we even consider letting anyone else into the space. Regarding the toilets, which seems to be like the main thing in every webinar that I attend, we're going to deep clean the toilets regularly, but we will also clean between group bookings. What we're going to ask, as everyone coming into the space is an adult, that if they are physically able to, that they wipe down anything they've touched, the toilet door and taps, and put the paper in the bin, wash their hands, and we'll deal with that waste appropriately. And if you're not able to do it yourself, then ask one of the staff and we will do it for you. And regarding arriving, nobody will be allowed in the door if they haven't booked and paid in advance. We're not allowed to have drop-ins. We're not allowed to have spectators. So it will be, we'll always know who's coming. And that's basically, so we've got our track and trace in place. So before you can book, before you can come in, you will have been asked to book and pay, give your phone number and your email. I will know what date and time you attended and with who, so that if I have to do a RIDDOR report or contact track and trace, I'm able to get that information across as quickly as possible and accurately. So things are in place. So you're going to attend with your fixed group. By being in that fixed group, hopefully if there's a problem with another fixed group, it won't affect yours. Change your shoes before you come into the main part of the building. Wash your hands, be wearing clean clothes. Bring your own water bottle, which is labelled clearly as yours, and make sure that only you use that water bottle. Bring ideally nothing with you other than your shoes. And if you have to bring anything, make it as few objects as possible. Everything you carry and you put down and place somewhere it just increases the risk. So we can walk in clean, change our shoes, hang our shoe bag up on the hook in the studio and dance. That would be ideal. And again, I'm going over old ground, but you'll be asked to follow the one-way system all the time. Familiarise yourself with the procedures. I've planned a map which is going to be on the website and on the external door, so you can see the system before you're in the system. I would ask that you queue in a physically distanced manner. So if the 6 in the waiting area are already there, then wait in your cars or outside, spread out. Please arrive punctually so that we can make sure that you get a full class, because we can't keep going back against the one-way system, and that you depart punctually so we can clean after you and the next group can come in. And then also just to please wait until you're invited into the next area, and be aware of looking at the signs that tell you how many people are allowed in that space. On a good week in the studio, I gain a few pairs of socks, a couple of t-shirts, a scarf. I need to ask that everyone takes away everything with you, so we're not having to handle things that we don't know. And again, just quickly run through this. So the studio space is allowed 24 people, including me. That's 2 metre by 2 metre box. When it's partnered classes, you will have a 4 metre by 2 metre box. When it's high shielders, you will have a 6 metre by 4 metre box. All participants will be facing the same way, so we refer to that as side to side. Some schools might be choosing to do back-to-back work in order to fit more people in a smaller space. We're just going to go for as much space as we can realistically. If anyone's going to do any high intensity work, that 2 meters is going to become 3.5 meters. So we're going to look at technique and method over panting, because panting creates problems. So we're going to try and keep everyone out of there. We've got a passing procedure planned. We've got a procedure in case of a first aid emergency. We've got a policy written so that people know to not make anyone else feel unsafe. We ask that everyone remain in their allocated workspace with your team, and that if you're going to wear a mask, for example, that you use that mask and you wear it correctly, you have clean hands when you put it on, you don't fiddle with it, and that you try and stay at a low to medium intensity of exercise. So there's a big load of information that I was reading and listened to the other day where it was saying that it create moisture, and what we need to keep out of the studio is moisture. We need to keep it quite dry with lots of natural ventilation. So it needs to be under 40% humidity. So we don't want to create a dry environment and then you have a damp mask and damp around your face and things sticking to it. So masks are very personal, but if you're going to wear them, please wear them correctly. I'm going to ask for no gloves at this time, because I think that we are better washing our hands regularly and using sanitizer. You're going to wear clean indoor shoes, but we're going to clean specific areas on the floor between classes, which will collect droplets, which is being highlighted. So we can do that, but you can help us make sure that there's less risk there when we do that. So I think finally in relation to you guys, what the last kind of expectation is that if there's a door shut, it's because it has to be. If there's a door open, it's because it's allowed to be. If the windows are open, please leave them open. So the advice from One Dance UK is that the internal doors should be closed, and the fire doors have got to stay with the fire assessment over the COVID assessment. So our fire doors will be closed, our internal doors will be closed, but our windows will be open with the fans being used, which is allowed to keep the air moving, so that we can get as much fresh air in there as possible. If I not bored you all to death, then please ask me, oh, is there a question? Okay, Alison, yeah. So Alison's asking if the lessons are going to be streamed and how to be able to access them online. So every lesson I teach that isn't a private lesson is going to be streamed. So when you go onto a class on the website to book a lesson, there will be an option to attend physically or virtually. Some of those lessons will already be fully populated because I'm restricted to how many people I have, and I'm asking for fixed groups. So let's say I've got 4 couples who have chosen to do bachata at intermediate level. That is a public group in as much as you can attend it virtually. But physically, that 8 people for now is probably as many as I want in the studio. We can have 24, but as I've said, I don't want to be pushing everyone in like sardines. So this is why we're kind of coming at it back to front. So I know that historically you're all used to me having, this is the schedule, this is week 1, this is week 8, book on. I'm having to do it differently because I don't know who wants to come back. and I don't know whether we've got enough people to run certain groups. So I've started by asking what lessons people want and collecting everyone's emails. And then when I can see definite groups emerging from that, they will be emailed and offered a time. And if they accept that time, they will then they'll be given a way to pay for 4 weeks of that. Because of the fixed groups, and because you can attend a lesson even if you can't attend a lesson, we're going to do everything in 4-week blocks in the first instance, because that keeps the groups together. And also, I think that if I need sustainable people, I can't have the studio empty because people are choosing to come or not to come, because already we're going to be running at, you know, less than an eighth of our normal capacity. And I'm not looking to hire the studio out to other people, because I just want it to be safe before we do that. And perhaps just introduce people very gradually with a little bit of, well, a lot of training on how we want things to be done. I think we can keep it safe, you know, and we did really well before the lockdown, because that last couple of lessons that we taught before I chose to close the studio, which was 10 days before we were locked down, the 2 people were positive for COVID in that class and didn't know it, and didn't hand it on to anyone else, because we'd already started distancing people and stopped partner work and had everyone facing the right way. I mean, what is there anything that I have not covered and people are thinking, what about this or what about that? Because this book is only about COVID and it's full. So it's probably got the answer in here. So if you want to ask me anything. Okay, so I'm going to do lessons in the daytimes. So I'm having morning blocks, which predominantly, you know, will probably be populated by people who are self-employed or working from home. And those lessons, I wrote it down somewhere, it's a 4-hour block, so it's from 10 till 2. And then there'll be afternoon blocks from 2 till 6. And then there'll be evening blocks from 6 till 10. So what I'm trying to do is leave it so that I can fully clear the studio out and have time to give it a proper deep clean before each new day starts. And then I've got like a 2-level cleaning policy, one between classes and one after the set of classes. I just think if we put everyone in the same way that and we're going to do a Saturday afternoon as well. Yeah, so Joseph, I know that there are lots of people that do work shifts. So the difference will be that if you've signed up for a lesson, you'll be sent the lesson even if you couldn't make it. So if you found, for example, a dance partner bubble, so if you're not in a bubble already, I have a list of women looking for males to bubble with in lessons. You could potentially meet your bubble with the video and take the lesson before the following week. So even though you might not always physically be able to be in there, the course will be seamless. This is all assuming that Amanda's going to get her head around the tech. But I've got a wonderful husband that's trying to help me get that right. So I'm going to be introducing Saturday afternoons, which will be a new thing. And we'll just see how they go. Because I don't think people are all going to be wanting to be shoulder to shoulder down Clumber Street over the next few months. So perhaps the Saturday afternoons will be popular. Any other concerns or thoughts from anybody? This will all be done in different policies, and all our policies and procedures are going to be available. This is one of the reasons I'm not teaching this week, because just masses of stuff to get written and available. The lessons will be going online once I by Wednesday, people should have voted as to what lessons they wanted. When I can see what lessons people are wanting, to some extent, I'll have an idea from the names of when they might like those lessons. So I shall contact them as groups and start offering them times, or might use a similar poll system. And if there's more people for one type of lesson than I can have, then I will teach 2 lots of that lesson. And then it might be that we have 2 improver bachata groups, for example, and they don't need to be the same. So then you'd have the option of taking one physically and the other one digitally. And credits will be able to be used for all of this. Your credits will work for all of these lessons. But I don't know what lessons people want yet, because a lot of people are not in a position to do partner work, but there's loads we can do without being in partners. Loads. We've just done 14 weeks of lessons without a partner in 3 styles, so I'm sure we can carry on. Is that okay? So so the closing time is Wednesday night for people to vote for what lessons they want to be in, and then from there I'll be able to start to get an idea, and then they'll start to appear on the website as the times are confirmed. The voting was sent out in an email on Saturday morning. It was a doodle poll. Yeah, so that's a good question, Lynn. So if you don't want to come back straight away, but say you want to come back in September or October, there's going to be a system on the homepage where you can request to join a group. So you can request to join a beginner salsa or request to join an intermediate salsa. Depending on what's happening with the country, if we've got 10 people, for example, in salsa intermediates, and everything's looking quite positive with the country, and you're the only one wanting to join salsa intermediates, we would introduce you into salsa intermediates. If there's a few people wanting to join, and it looks like it's not going to keep the room as safe as I would like it to be, then we'll start a second group. So how we've always been is not going to be how we're going to be, and that's kind of taken me a little bit of time to get my head around that, to say the least, because I like things a very particular way. But the other thing that I've had to get my head around with that is the tech side of it. So the website has been entirely built for courses of the same type on a repeat pattern over the year, and now it's going to be much more like collecting people, and once we've collected enough people, we will put a class on for that group, which is nice in a way, because if you've got a group that you trust and you feel comfortable being around, and they know your circumstances, I feel that we can put on a lesson for you that you can have physically just as your group, but perhaps we would still broadcast that. And when I say broadcast, because I've had a couple of people say I don't want to be filmed, the broadcast area will be my section of the studio. So I'm not suggesting that you guys are live online, any time of day or night doing your bachata basics. It won't be like that. The camera system effectively will take a 2 meter by 2 meter square as though it is a student in the room. So it will be as though you're in the classroom watching me, but you'll still have the interaction because it will be live. That's the plan. In theory, we've got all the bits. We've just got to put it together. There's a way, apparently. Is that okay, Lynn? Does that make sense? Good. So I do know there are a few people have said for them it's not going to be till September. Others have said not till October. But absolutely at any point, the fixed groups are going to have some natural fallout. The fixed group thing, it's how all the big ballet schools are doing it, but obviously they often live together and study together. But what they're doing, the reason they're doing it is so that the teacher can distance from the group, and if the group have a positive test, if the teacher's been sufficiently distanced, that other classes can continue. Whereas if you've got people just dropping in willy-nilly here and there, and they become a positive test, that's everything shut down. So there are mitigations. Some schools, I think, will ask for masks. Some schools will go less than a metre and use masks and gloves. But the evidence doesn't suggest that that's going to be sufficient. So I think because we do have the luxury of space, we'll use that space and the fresh air and the ventilation system and stick with the 2 metres until we are absolutely confident that we won't be increasing risk to anybody by changing it. We just need to get digital and get creative. It should make things better. You know, it should, the plan and the method of planning for the new style of lessons, I think, will be a much more complete learning experience than it has been historically. And for people who perhaps are more read-write learners or visual learners, there's going to be much more opportunity for including written instruction and diagrams through that system than I've ever been able to use previously. So I think for some people, it perhaps will change their relationship with learning dance in a very positive way, which would be super, wouldn't it, if all these good things came out of this. I'm excited. I think it'll be really different, but I hope that it'll be a different that will provide enough dancing, enough human connection to reap the benefits of dance, which is, you know, our motivation for dancing. You know, we're a community social dance school for recreation and social inclusion and physical and emotional well-being. That's what we do. We're not competitive, we're not ego driven. So I know we need to be together. I know you need to feel like we're together so you can feel that community. And I think even by having, you know, 8 couples in a classroom and some more people virtually connecting, that will start to come back. Thanks. Have spent quite a lot of time. I'm going to tell you this, but you mustn't laugh or you will all laugh. I'm having a recurring nightmare, literally every night, where every time I turn my back, you lot start doing a rueda and I can't make you stop. And I'm there going, you can't touch each other, you've got to stop. And you're just all doing rueda constantly and not letting me stop you. I owe you everything. From that to jellied windows. I'm trying to open the windows for you and they've all turned to jelly and they won't open. So it's all getting a bit weird. A bit cheese dreams, I think. But yeah, that's the plan. And there's other things that we're going to introduce. So the plan is it will start with small groups, small fixed groups. If the risk reduces, we might put 2 fixed groups together, or we might invite other people to join a group. But we're going to have to kind of roll it like that so that we can provide what's wanted and ensure that the people who are attending, most importantly, feel safe and protected by the system. And I think if we can learn the system in small groups, it will become our culture. You know, we'll know it and we'll come in and it will just be what we do. And then if 2 groups become 1 group, the increase of people is not going to increase the risk because the learned behaviour will already be there. You'll already know, I go in this door, I'll wait for someone to move away from the sink before I use it. And the quicker that we can get the system in our thoughts, I think the sooner we might feel that we can go from 8 to 10 or whatever. But we just have to see. I mean, everything's different for everybody at the moment, you know, isn't it? But you don't all have a drummer living in your attic, do you? Oh, dear me. Any questions, everybody? And, you know, any thoughts or anything you think I've completely overlooked? I mean, there's loads of stuff. I'll just share this with you really briefly. There's loads of stuff that I haven't kind of, God, see, the text failing me at the first hurdle. Of course it is. There's loads of stuff that you don't kind of need to worry about, but I've, you know, I'm on it. So everything by area, which area of the studio, whose responsibility it is, the behaviour of arriving, you know, everything that needs to be in place for documentation. And we need to have a separate COVID risk assessment, and then we need to have a COVID assessment per activity. So for us at the moment, we're only going to have 2 activities. So we'll either be solo work or we'll have partner work, but it will be standing and non-traveling. So if we were doing Rueda, for example, or a team performance, then that would be a completely new risk assessment, and that would, you know, obviously increase the risk quickly and dramatically. So there's no point doing that. For what? Okay. So it's there. I've just got to get it in a way that you guys have enough information to follow the system without being overwhelmed with rules, because I don't want it to be like a, you know, to feel too constrained by it, but you need to know there's enough of it to look after you. And that's the balance, I think. You know, and I think we've all had experiences in the last few weeks, those of us who were able to go out, where we haven't felt people are doing everything they can to make other people feel safe. So I think it's of absolute paramount importance that we do everything we can to make sure we all feel safe, and that we feel like on a Sunday after working all week, we can go and wave at our mum from the other end of the garden without feeling like a risk. It's important, isn't it? Yeah, I'm going to do, so there's three stages in that. I'm going to do an actual video from the street going through the one-way system. And then I'm going to have a page on the website with a map of the system and how you're expected to travel through it. And then there's going to be a bullet list of things to remember. And then when you book that will be visible on the website, but also when you book your lesson, you'll be sent a form, and the form will ask you to consider, you know, any exposure, have you got any symptoms, not to bring too many belongings, everything like that. It'll all be there. So yeah, this is why I've had to stop teaching now. Well, I'm just doing bachata on Tuesdays, but this is why I've had to stop so I can start this, and because I've got to have my university work for this academic year in by Friday and do this. So yeah, juggling. But yeah, definitely does. That's the plan. The plan is that you will know yourself. No, I've been studying it. I'm really lucky. I'm a member of 2 professional dance bodies, one Dance UK and people dancing. And One Dance UK have been bringing in professors of about who all they do is study breathing during exercise, and people who just study how droplets behave on clothing and things like that. So that's who's been delivering our webinars. So it's been really, really helpful. And there's been lots of information, and then they said that we could open, but they didn't give us any guidelines. And then it was a bit like, we don't fit in this box and we don't fit in that box. So I think that people will go to work with a different mindset to people going for a social activity. So I think the social activity, for me to be able to feel like I'm looking after everybody, I need to do the best I can. So I'm glad you think it's okay, because there's a lot of thought gone into it. I'd be quite glad when it's all just there. But don't tell Marius I told you this, but we were painting all the arrows on the studio the other day, and guess what? He did one the wrong way. So you'll all have to look out and see if you can see it when you come to the studio. Yeah, you'll get a little reminder, Hannah, every time you come. You know, when you get your booking form for a lesson at home, and I ask you to clear your dining room and make sure you're not going to trip up and open a window, there'll be a very similar type of email, so that you can just have bullet point check of what you need to think about before you attend. Absolutely, I think you'll be absolutely fine. And it's very visual once you get there. So we've just painted it straight onto the walls, because I think it's going to be there for a long time, and we couldn't afford the stickers, so we just painted them on onto the walls that only 7 or 8 months ago we were lovingly painting for the first time. But it's good. This is why I think small groups is best, and small groups of the same people, because you know you'll know each other's behaviour, and you'll go to your places, and you'll all kind of have that kind of desire path mentality, so it'll work. Yeah, maybe we'll paint it over later, maybe we'll keep it for nostalgia, I don't know. It's not awful because I designed it myself. It's not black and yellow hazard tape for sure. As long as we can get some feedback on the dance floor, that's a priority. It feels a very sad place. It's got no heart and soul at the moment. It just feels empty, except for maybe 2 small Dachshunds running around getting paint on themselves. Right, let me see your beautiful faces, then I can say goodbye to you all, as long as no one's in the bath or anything. If any questions or thoughts or anything you think I've missed, you know, please do just drop me a line. I'm not going to be offended if you think I've completely dropped something. It's nice to see you all. You're looking well, happy, smiley faces. That's nice. Good, good. Dorota's in the pub in Poland. I'm sure she's fine. Brilliant.
I'm actually back home, not in the pub anymore.
Good.
But yeah, still in Poland.
Good. And how is it there? Is it okay?
Yeah, but the number of people who are affected is much less than in UK, so the rules are relaxed now.
Yeah, yeah.
So the situation is better.
Good. As long as you're staying safe. Everyone wants to be safe. Right, yeah. My lovelies, enjoy your Sunday. Any questions? If you want to get in a group, vote in the poll. And I've now got 4 men who've nominated themselves to be partnered up. So we might even get some happy ever afters in this, which would be superb. I know, right? Right. Thank you all very much for your time. Stay safe. Look forward to seeing you for real. Take care, guys. If you need any lessons, send it. Just let me know. I'll send you some, okay? Bye, Joseph. Thank you. Why is that not working?